T.B.Photo X1.5 to FX, and welcome back to another video. Well, this is gonna be another camera overview. I think I've done something similar before as well with this one, but I think that we need to do it in a little bit more concise way and a little bit more, the first one was a little bit of a should I stay or should I go now type of thing, where I wanted to see if I'm gonna upgrade or side grade. Link to that video in the description, but anyway, this is my overview assembly of this very interesting looking box. Many people, when I'm used this camera outside, they ask me if it is a Hasselblad. No, it's not. It's the Mamiya RB67 Professional. This is the first generation of it, and yeah, we are going to assemble it. So basically, what you have here in front of you is the Mamiya RB67 body. So the camera I have affectionately called Godzilla because it's a beast of a camera. This is the very first iteration of this camera system, and I've already had a video of it, but now more in depth with this one. So we are starting with the right side of the camera. So what do we have here on the right side? Well, we have the cocking lever that will actually reset the shutter mechanism and the mirror, because this is an SLR camera. Then we have a strap lug up here. Let's see here. Yeah, we have the focus wheel. It's a bellows focus system, this camera. So when we extend it, we actually have a chart here, and this chart is actually a form of exposure compensation table. So one way you can actually say that this is a early version is that it only has 4 focus lengths on this chart. It goes from 65, 90, 127 and 250 millimeter focus length, which tells me that this is a early version of this camera. So the number of different lens focal lengths that you have is very small. So at the successor to this, the Pro S, they actually had to add a lot of focus lengths because they had expanded the range of Mamiya C-Core lenses. But anyway, let's see. I have a cheat sheet because there is a fair few pages that I want to, go through on this camera, so we might have to do a couple of takes from this. But anyway, so that's basically the right side of the camera. Front, we have the bellows focus system. We also have the shutter release, which in this version it just takes up the mirror, so as you can see. And you also have a lock system on it, so that even if you have reset it, you can't activate the shutter release before you have taken off the lock. Okay, let's see more here. And also you have the female part of the lens bayonet fitting for this system. Yeah, okay, and then we have the left side. We also have a focusing wheel and a strap lug, and that's basically everything we have here. On the top, on the top of the camera then, well, here is the focus screen holder and the viewfinder holder. So if I'm just gonna do like so, and here you go. This is the one of the focusing screens that you can have for this camera, Mamiya's own. This is the factory one, and another one you will see in this one is that you have 2 solid lines and 2, what should we call, striped lines, like so. That is for your landscape and portrait orientation. But basically, this screen basically just, let's see. Yeah, it basically just sits on top of this, and then we have the the viewfinder. This is just the ordinary top hat, stovepipe, you know, viewfinder. This is the original first version of this viewfinder, because if you look at most of the RB67 Pro S versions, they are self-folding, but this one isn't, because all the sides here are full sheets of metal, so you have to, you know, fold it together for itself, but it does spring open for itself, and you have a magnifying loop. And this being the first generation, the loop doesn't cover the entire chimney, if you want. It only is this piece here. But it rests good here. Again, so let's see if I can show you this. If I fold these down, you can see there is the magnifying loop, and that's how you put it up. Yeah. But basically, you just put it on the front here, slide it back. So these two little lips, you know, it engages here on both sides, and then you just press this so it locks in place. And now you have the focusing screen, and the waist level viewfinder is installed on this camera. So, backside. Well, here we have some of what makes this camera so special, because we have this little tab down here. And on this, we actually put the rotating back plate. Let's see which way it's supposed to be. Let's see here, something like. You just put it on like so, and you close this tab, and now you have the rotating back firmly secured to the camera. So that's a little bit of the thing with this camera, because here you have a film back. I have currently 3 of these film backs, and I thought I'd just show you one of them, because unfortunately this is loaded with film. So I can't disassemble this one to show you the innards, because there is film in it. So if I remove the dock slide, I will unfortunately expose the film in it. So keep in mind with that. But anyway, what you have on it is that you have the open and shut mechanism, the dock slide, you have the advancing, what should we call it? Advancing clutch, and up top here you have the advancing lever, the film type, this is a 120 back, you have the frame counter, and you have the exposed or not exposed. This is now red because I did a reset of this camera, but if this normally, when this is white, it means that the frame you have is not exposed, and when it's red, it means that it's exposed. So this one, I know it's not exposed. So basically you just put it back here. You don't slide it on from any way, because there's a little hole here, and if you have a film back that is very, you know, worn away here, it's because people try to slide them on. But you just place it, and you push on top and the bottom. You have this little that says lock, and now the film back is locked into place with the camera. And RB rotating back, this is what is preferred to be called the portrait setting, and this is the landscape setting, because keep in mind, this camera doesn't take photos in a square format. It's actually rectangular, so it is a 6 by 7 centimeters negative. So that means that instead of you having to tilt the entire camera, you only rotate the back in order to change between horizontal or vertical. Okay, let's see here. I think we're finished with the first page. Yeah, but one thing that is a little bit now is that if you have this, just the original waist level viewfinder, the problem you might encounter is that everything is reversed. So fortunately, when I got this system, I also got it with this. This is the Mamiya RB67 PD Prism Finder, and the PD Prism Finder is what it says until it is a finder that contains a pentaprism. So this adds a significant amount of weight to the camera, but it has its advantages. Because first of all, This is the only part of the camera that runs on a battery. It runs on a 4LR44 6-volt battery, one of those. And as stated, it adds a fair bit of weight. So when using this, I would really suggest that you use it with one of these, the left-hand grip from Mamiya. So you have a little bit more of a firm hold of the grip of the camera, but more about this later. Or you use it on a tripod, because you look through here and you will see through the lens. So this also, as you can see, you have some controls here. This prism finder contains a light meter. That's why it uses a 6-volt battery. So this actually, it was made in the 1970s, and you can imagine this was cutting edge in the 1970s, because this has two, not one, but two TTL light metering modes, which was revolutionary for the time. So this has, you can see here it says A and S on this little switch here. Yep, where A stands for average, which on the Nikon system would be the equivalent of matrix metering, or S, which is spot metering. The thing that is mostly not really shown that much, and I don't know how to, I might do some B-roll for this, but you basically have a inner and an outer ring here. The outer one here that has white markings are for the aperture you set on the lens. The inner one with yellow markings are for the shutter speed, so it goes from 1 to 1/400th of a second. Yeah, but then you also have what I call the maximum aperture preset, which is down here. You have a little bit here. That means that some of the Mamiya lenses has different maximum apertures. And you can actually preset that on this viewfinder, so you actually get a little bit of the estimate. The viewfinder gets to know what the maximum aperture on the lens is. So that will, you know, change your exposure a little bit. But anyway, you also set the film speed or ISO on this, and you basically push down this little lock button, and you can just turn this so it becomes the ISO of your film. And the ISO capability of this viewfinder goes between ISO 12 up to 6400. Okay, so big positive is that this viewfinder shows all the reciprocals, because if you meter in this viewfinder and you find that you have gotten the correct the correct exposure, you will actually see here, because the shutter speeds, the yellow shutter speeds would actually line up with the white aperture settings. So for an instance, if you put a lens on f8 at 1/125th of a second, you can see directly that a reciprocal for a f-stop of f16 will, in that case, you would need to use 1/30th of a second of shutter speed. So it's a neat little thing that you can use this prism finder for, that you can calculate reciprocals for depth of field and so on. Okay, lenses. Okay, well, Mamiya does a fair share of really great lenses for this camera system, and for demonstrational purposes I'm going to show you this one here. This is the Mamiya C-Core original. There is also, this is the Mamiya C-Core original or professional lens line. They later did, I mean, first you have these that only says Mamiya C-Core, they're the original. Then you have the C, Mamiya C-Core C, they're multi-coated. Then you have the KL, they're newer coating, and they are compatible with the Mamiya RB67 Pro SD, which has a bigger bayonet fitting. And then you have the L lenses, which is only compatible with the Mamiya RB67 Pro SD. But anyway, this lens then, for demonstrational purpose, it's the 90mm f3.8. Let's see, but I'm gonna put a link in the description to a Wikipedia article where you can see all the lenses and all the accessories for this camera system. Okay, in the front of almost all of the Mamiya lenses, you have, excuse me, you have what is called the focus distance calculator. They are also present on the RZ67 lenses, but very few people know how to use this practically. Well, I seldomly use this feature, but I think it's kind of important to know how it works. But to my knowledge, it works in this way that all of them have it, with the exception, two special lenses, is the 65mm and the radioactive 50mm, which have floating elements. In those lenses, actually, I have the 65mm here, and as you can see, the front here, where you can change it, this actually changes the positions of the floating elements in this lens to be able to give you the most sharp image possible. So you basically have two focusing dials. You have the bellows focusing on the camera, and you have the floating element focusing system in the lenses themselves. So you have those two different focusing systems on those two lenses, the 65 and the 50. And my 50mm is radioactive. But anyway, on the other ones, like this 90 and so on, it's only a scale guide. So what you basically do is that you focus the camera to the focusing distance that you want. As you can see, the further out it goes, the closer you will focus. That's why you also have macro close-up tubes for it. So in essence, if I would focus this this is the 90mm, so if I would focus that to 3 meters, so I have this here, so I see that the graph for the 90mm is at 3 meters. I would basically then take a look at the lens, and I would set the scaling to, let's see, 3 meters, and I have a aperture of put it on f8 aperture, and then I can actually see here that a aperture of f8 will make me have a depth of field from 2.5 to 4 meters. So I would have a 1.5 meter depth of field at 3 meters focus distance and at f8. So that's a little bit of a neat way to calculate your depth of field. And now we need to do a jump cut on this, so be right back. And we are back. So as a repetition, you set the focus on the camera, you look at the bar chart, or rather the graph here, at what type of focus distance you have, and then you put in that focus distance in this scale here on the front of the lens, and you look at your aperture, and for this it was f8, and then we see that it goes from 2.5 meters up to 4 meters, so 1.5 meter of depth of field at 3 meters, at 3 meters away from the camera. So yeah, and then we'll have a look at the different controls of this so a little bit more space at least. Okay, so the first ring that you have, control ring that you have on the lens, is the shutter speed ring. And this is basically universal for most of the RB67 lenses. It is, since Mamiya uses a leaf shutter system, there are leaf shutters in this lens. So the shutter and the aperture is in the lens. The only thing you have in the camera is basically the mirror. But anyway, all of them has, since it is leaf shutters, you basically have flash sync at any given shutter speed. So, with the exception for timer mode, but more about that later. Well, what you actually have then is that this one gives you a shutter speed from 1 second, full second, up to 1/400th of a second. And you basically twist this color in order to change the shutter speed. Right behind it you have the aperture. And for this particular lens, the 90 millimeter, and this is the standard, it's not the C and it's not the KL. This goes between aperture 3.8 to 32. Okay? Right behind it we have a little bit of a switch that is like a gear slide between two different modes. You have an X and a M. I usually keep it on X because the X and the M are flash settings. The M is for old school flash bulbs, you know, the ones that only allows you to use it for once and then it's burnt out. So that is, if you have those types of old school flash bulbs, you keep it on M, and for every kind of electronic modern flash with a PC port, you use the M setting. No, X setting, excuse me. The X setting is for modern flash, while M is for old flash bulbs. So I keep all my lenses on X. Okay, then you have the PC sync port, which is basically for the flash connection for this camera system. Then on the bottom of every of these lenses you have a little lever that you can push like this. And this is the depth of field preview lever. So when you have it on the camera, you basically have your focus and so on, and to check the depth of field, even though you can do it with this calculator, you actually also can depress this, and then we'll close down the aperture to your preset, and you will see the depth of field, but keep in mind that will also make it darker. Okay, so we also have another little special thing here on the side. Here you have a N and an M setting, and this little lug you basically pull out and twist in order for getting it from M to M. And what is this then? This is the mirror up system. And what is that? This is actually for using mirror up mode on the RB67, you either have to buy one of those extremely overpriced Mamiya proprietary dual external mechanical mirror shutter trigger system, or DEMMSTS, dual external mechanical mirror shutter trigger system. I just made that up, by the way. Or you can do as I do. You can get two of these. These are basically two of these old style plunger shutters, and I'm gonna mount it on this camera now to just show you. We'll show you here how it goes. In order for these to interlock with each other, you have to have the camera cocked so the mirror is in its down position, and also on the back of the lens you have this little silver peg up here and the two pegs here. Mamiya actually recommends its owners to keep these lenses in a released configuration when stored, because that will actually prevent the internal clockwork and spring mechanism to be worn out, because they're not constantly under tension. But the only thing you have to do is to take these two and move them to first the red and then the green dots, and the lens is basically in sync. And then you just line the red dot here with the red dot here. You align them. You don't use any violence when you do this. This is just, you should just go together, and you rotate this color and it's locked into position. So this is how you do it. And I'm actually now gonna remove the film back, because if the dark slide is in, you won't be able to activate the camera. But what you do is basically that you take one of your shutters and you insert it in like so. So now you have it for the entire camera. And if you want to do mirror up, you put this on mirror up, and you put in another trigger here. So now you basically have two triggers. This one will, and I will put this on 1 second so you will actually hear it. You first press this one that puts the mirror up. Okay, and then when you're ready to take the picture, you just, there you go. So, and then you just reset. So, it's a 3-step process. First, step 1, depress the camera release or mirror release. So the mirror is out of the way, because that's what the mirror slap is what's gonna give you a shutter shake. 2, take the picture, depress the lens shutter, exposing the image. 1 second. And when you're done, you just advance and reset the system. And then if you just want to take a normal picture, you just remove these two, put these out of the way, and you take this out of mirror up mode into normal operation. And now you're basically back in business. Let's see here. Replace the film back. There. So, there you basically have it. So, I've shown you how now we basically have the camera is completely reassembled. What else do we have? I have a strap for the camera, because when you're out and about with this, you need a little bit of insurance. And let's see now here. This camera weighs a bloody ton, and with this viewfinder it is even heavier. So this is how I usually carry it, and I even bolt down additional parts. Let's see. So you actually use the tripod lug on the bottom of this camera, and you just basically screw this on, and there you have it. That's how the gravity is on this camera, because it's very heavy. So, and now we should see here. Yeah, and we have gone through the lens and so on. So yes, if you're gonna get one accessory to this camera that I would really recommend you to get, it's this left-hand grip, because now it really feels like a professional camera. You have a good neck strap that you basically hold it like this. You see through the viewfinder. You have your focusing dial that you can, I usually hold it like this. Focusing dial with this one. Change the shutter speed, change the aperture preview button, and then you have the trigger right here. It's a little bit of a new thing to, learn to use your left hand as a trigger, but after a roll of film, you're basically used to it. So yeah, it's a really neat, fun system to use. And also on this left-hand grip, you have a cold shoe on top here. So what actually I can do, if you looked at my Mamiya 645 Pro flash tutorial, I actually used the cheap Onsen flash trigger system. And what you can do actually is that you can get a adapter cable that goes from a PC port to a mini phono jack. So you put the PC port on the lens, and then you can have the Onsen flash trigger mounted on this cold shoe, and you have a cable that connects the two, and Bob's your uncle. You have a remote flash system to this old school professional studio camera. Because this is actually, that's what this camera was made for, a professional studio camera. And two great photographers today that I know that use the RC67, because the RC67 is still around, and it's the younger brother or sibling to this one. And two photographers to note is first a guy who only goes by Rankin, who is from the UK, and Canadian pop star slash photographer Brian Adams is famous for using Mamiya. So yeah, that's I think that actually sums up my tutorial of this camera. I can just show you here then. If I take this out, you have these. Okay, now I'm gonna store this. I basically have to push this little pin in the top, press these two down, and then I can just release the shutter. There you go. So now I can store this and it won't degrade the springs in it because nothing is under tension. Yeah, and here we then have the, what is it, the 65mm, the one with the floating lenses in it. There we go. The same thing, you have the color here, you have to line up a little red triangle with a red dot, and you line up the red dot with a red dot, and you basically turn the color, and there you go, the lens is back on the camera. So yeah, I have decided that I will basically stick with this system, and I might just that depends on a little bit on how it goes, but I might get a RZ67 body in the future, because the great thing is that the RZ67 is compatible with RB67 lenses. The difference is that on the RB, which I have here, the shutter speeds are on the lens, but on the RZ it's a dial right here. So on that dial on the RZ, you can actually put it on a setting that says RB, which means that you can put RB lenses on a RC body. And why would I get a RC when I already have a great RB? The RZ or RZ is more compatible with the digital backs. You have the RZ67 Pro, you have the RZ67 Pro 2, and you have the RZ67 Pro D. But not only the D is compatible with digital backs, the Pro 1 and Pro 2 is also compatible with digital backs. But anyway, as I've stated, I'm very pleased with this system as of yet. Really think it's a beautiful camera to use, and yeah, we'll see what the future holds. But it is a beautiful system, and hope that you find this video informational. Might do a tutorial with this camera as well, a little bit of photography. And as stated, this is my favorite way of having the camera, to use it with the, the left-hand grip, and you can basically maneuver it very good. It weighs it's hefty. So yeah, it weighs a bloody ton, but it's very fun to use, and but I like the heavy stuff. So anyway, yeah. This is basically everything for me, and I have planned in the future at least to do a few reviews of 120 film for these types of cameras, but we'll see what the future holds. But anyway, this is Tobias Bergström from T.B.Photo X1.5 TFX, and I would like to see you guys in the next video. And as always, as you're supposed to say in this YouTube malarkey, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care from now on. Bye.